Yeah.
All right, everybody. Some days you get out there and you just win the day, and some days the day wins you. And this is one of those days with technical issues, but we've solved like 5 issues, so we're making steady progress, and it feels like a win, even though we're starting, several minutes late. But I appreciate your patience, and you've obviously been having fun chit-chatting and all that, so it's not that bad. Nobody cares. Welcome to the Arkansas Society of Freethinkers monthly meeting. We're a nonprofit organization devoted to maintaining the separation between religion and state, advocating a scientific and humanistic viewpoint, and improving the lives of non-believers. We are not technically astute, as you can see. You can learn more about ASF by picking up one of the flyers in back or by visiting our website at arfreethinkers.org. The most reliable way, of course, is to getting to know the members around you. Standard disclaimer, sometimes we have speakers that one might disagree with. I don't think that's the case today, but ASF is a diverse organization with members who represent a wide range of opinions. The speakers who present at our monthly meetings do not necessarily represent the views of ASF or its members. Because we are a 501c3 organization, ASF cannot directly support candidates for public office, but we can advocate for causes such as the separation of church and state, scientific literacy, societal progress, and truthful communication. That said, next, we have the legendary Bern Bradley, who will deliver our free thought of the day. If you could give Bern a warm welcome.
Having heard him say that, I'm wondering if I need to disagree with Mr. McMath just to make it more interesting. One of my favorite things to do with Facebook is memories. They pop up. There's a menu, and you can go and hit memories, and it'll show you. I have not yet figured out why they're picking what they're picking, because something that they picked last year won't necessarily come back next year. But I love it because I see things that I don't remember doing. I shared things that I don't remember sharing, and sometimes I share things that I really didn't agree with, and I'm looking at that, and I've just come to the conclusion that I have to have been thinking, this is going to pop up in 1 or 2 or 3 years, and it'll remind me that I was interested in this and look further into it. Having said that, a woman named Katie Thermos gives us our thought for the day. We take photographs as a return ticket to a moment that is otherwise gone. Thanks.
Thank you, Bern. Now our feature presentation. Before we get into our feature presentation, and I know that we've already done that, but if you haven't talked to the person next to you in the seat or introduced yourself and said your name, take a moment to do that now. No need to, be cold to one another. I've tried to say hi to everyone through all the technical difficulties, but All right. So our monthly meeting offers you a chance to have your voice be heard. Talk to us if you'd like to deliver the free thought of the day, as Vern just did, or if you'd like to share a brief presentation about a piece of misinformation that you've come across, which there's no shortage of ideas there. Or if you'd like to do a member story, which is kind of a story about a part of your life. It helps us get to know each other better, helps us to, share something that was meaningful to us. ASF also has openings on our board of directors, ways to volunteer. There's ways to get involved beyond just this meeting. So feel free to speak to any of the officers, or drop us a line and see if you have a role that you could play to help us out with our mission. So, our speaker for today is Bruce McMath, and he'll be talking to us about dark skies, light pollution, and don't have the full bio, but I'm sure Bruce will introduce himself. So, could everyone give a nice, warm welcome to Bruce McMath?
So Roger Hall invited me to this group to make a presentation here, and he said it was a group of free thinkers, and I said, oh, that'll be interesting. I haven't done that before, and then about a little time, a few days ago, I realized I didn't know where this was going to be, and I texted him, and he said at the church, at the Unitarian church. And I thought, well, now that's a twist. And so I had to do a little research on this. I feel quite comfortable here with this group. So I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I give this talk somewhere between 5 minutes and 50 minutes, depending on how technical we want to get into it. And when I've got the time, I try to put it in a context that makes it more interesting. But I'm going to do that in spades today. And I want to invite you to go back 13.5 billion years. I don't know how we can get any more context than that. And then come back to where we are now, guardians of the human adventure, the current guardians of the human adventure. And from that perspective, you can see the incredible course of events that have brought us here, self-awareness for the universe. The only self-awareness we know of that the universe has. A 13.5 billion year journey that starts with the Big Bang, and then the formation of galaxies, countless generations of stars that take hydrogen and turn it into the heavy elements and minerals that ultimately our sun's solar system is formed from, that make these planets that we stand on and make us possible. And then about 3 billion years ago, life evolved, and think about the incredible aspect of that and the process that has passed since then, the unimaginable number of rolls of the dice involved in the ever thicker layer of more complex organisms involved on this planet. And all through that time, the source for success for biology of any kind on the planet was one strategy: adaptation. Adaptation. To succeed, you had to adapt to your environment. Now, for sure, there were impacts on the environment. Organisms changed the environment. Early plants put the oxygen in the air. Great alterations had been occasioned, but it was never intentional. It was also always just a coincidence or an indirect result of the biological processes of adaptation. But about 10,000 years ago, humans did something different. And it's fundamental to my talk. We started changing the environment to suit us, consciously. And at first, it seemed like a really good idea. And in fact, for a long time, the agricultural revolution has been painted as a watershed, a wholly beneficial occurrence. Well, we now know that while that may be true on a macroscopic level, it increased the calorie available to humanity and exploded or allowed our population to grow. And then we settled down in communities and towns and became empires and wrote history, kings and kingdoms, and civilization was born from it. All that's true. But the reality is, it was not good for the average human being. We now realize that with the advent of agriculture, we entered a phase in which human stature shrank, life expectancy shrunk, disease became a problem that it had never been for our hunter-gatherer ancestors. And I'm going to have to truncate this a little bit over what I originally intended, but that process has continued. And we have not stopped with changing the physical environment. We're changing our social environment. We're changing the biological environment. We've changed the chemistry of the seas. We're changing the atmosphere. That's changing the very climate. We have invented artificial foods. And again, we see that on a macro scale, it looks like it's all good. But when you start digging down at the individual level, it's not necessarily so good. And in fact, we're beginning to see that a lot of consequences, insidious consequences, are inherent in this process by which we are changing, divorcing ourselves from nature and changing the world around us. So we have whole new diseases now from our artificial diet. Diabetes, coronary artery disease. Young people get colon cancer now from the artificial foods, ingredients in our foods. We are perhaps facing an existential threat from climate change. And you can just go down artificial intelligence now, another artificial element. We have artificialized our social lives with the consequences of teen suicide, elevated suicide rates. Spiritually, emotionally, we are divorced from nature, and things are not all rosy on account of that. So what has this got to do with light pollution? Well, light pollution is a microcosm of this. It shares these features because we changed one of the most fundamental elements of nature is the cycle of night and day. The earth has known night and day for 4.5 billion years. And in a matter of a few generations, we have altered that cycle. And now we're beginning to see the insidious consequences that are arising from that. And so that's what we're going to talk about here. Now, this is a photograph of the summer Milky Way taken by a friend of mine from Boston, Arkansas. When you look at the summer Milky Way, you're looking towards the center of our galaxy. In a natural condition, the night sky is a window on the cosmos, on our place in the universe. And our ancestors knew that experience. It was an intimate part of their daily lives. It was their bedroom ceiling. You go back not too many generations and it was more than that. It was very practical, consequential part of daily life. Clock, calendar, compass, and Netflix. Why do I say Netflix? Because they hung their stories of their gods, their heroes, their villains. The very story for their existence, their relevance in the universe was hung on the patterns they saw in the stars. And that's true of every human civilization that has ever been. In fact, I've got a pet theory that that's how you define humanity. You know, for a long time, anthropologists wanted to try to define what is the cross line between our non-human ancestors and humanity. And they said, well, it's tools. It was tools. Well, that turned out not to be true. And then they thought it was language. Well, that turned out not to be true. My theory is it happened when our ancestors looked at the stars with a sense of wonder and wanting to understand. That's when you have humanity. But we've traded that for this. And all that energy that you see going up in the sky, hiding the stars, 90% of young people grow up in this country today, grow up to adulthood without ever having witnessed the Milky Way, their place in the universe, is wasted energy. It is useless energy being casually thrown up into the sky. You see, we had thought that lighting, natural lighting, as I said before, artificial lighting was an inherent good. There was no possible harm that could come from it. And therefore, the more of it, the better, and where you put it didn't matter. And it's gotten cheaper and cheaper to do, so we just throw it around. And this is the consequence. We've removed our place in the universe from our daily lives and from our consciousness, and we're wasting a lot of energy. If you remove that wasted energy, you would make a good down payment on our carbon footprint and improve our impact on the climate. And this has happened over slow enough that for a long time we didn't really appreciate what was happening. But in terms of any kind of meaningful history, it's overnight. And this projects from the late 50s and carries the current state of affairs on into the future, into the next decade. This is a light pollution map of Arkansas. The Little Rock there in the middle, Memphis over here on the right, the Fayetteville region up there, in Oklahoma, Tulsa over there further. You can get oriented. You can see the Ouachita and the Ozark National Forest, the Mark Twain Forest up in Missouri. So what is light pollution? Well, it's any kind of light that's doesn't have a useful purpose and harms the environment or the community circumstance. Glare, sky glow, trespass, light clutter. We'll hit on these. What's the harm? Well, it wastes money, and we understand that in our society. Anything wastes money. But it also wastes energy, as I indicated, contributes to air pollution and greenhouse gases. A 100-watt light bulb left on all night for a year that's coal-fired will generate about a half a ton of carbon dioxide. It alters the diurnal cycle, impacting animal, plant, and human health, as we will see, contributes to crime and accidents, creates nuisance and light trespass, hides nature's grandest spectacle. There's nothing good about light pollution. This is taken from the International Space Station and just shows how the light, wasted light, going where it's not needed, up in the sky, just connects the whole area basically is light polluted. There's no place in Arkansas that is naturally dark anymore, even in Arkansas. Some places get close. This is just elaborates on the wasted energy and the carbon footprint. But I want to go to the medical, to the biological elements. As I indicated, all life on this surface of this planet evolved in a cycle of light and dark. And it turns out that that's keyed into us, not at a biological, metabolic, hormonal level. It's not just a conscious thing that you can't just decide that you don't want to have night and day anymore. Your body is built around this cycle, and it literally shifts gears, hormonal gears, when the sun goes down. We have receptors in the back of our eyes that are there not for seeing. They're there just to detect whether the diurnal cycle of light and dark, and that shifts these hormonal gears. And the American Medical Association came out with their first public health statement on the risks of exposure to artificial light at night in 2009, telling us that it disrupts human and animal circadian rhythms, increased risk of diabetes, depression, obesity, cancers of the breast and prostate. Exposure to artificial light at night has these impacts on human health. They also noted that disabling blinding glare, that poor lighting is a safety hazard, and they advocated using efficient lighting fixtures outdoors that were fully shielded. In 2016, they came along with an additional public health statement telling us that LED lighting, which at the time was tended to have and still tends to have excess blue, is a particular problem because blue light is the blue spectrum that drives this process, our biological process. Then this is not just humans, obviously. This goes into the animal and wildlife world, all the way from the simple organisms like zooplankton and phytoplankton. Zooplankton rises in the water column at night, feeds on the phytoplankton. In the presence of light pollution, it doesn't rise, it doesn't feed, you end up with algae blooms. The mating cycle, the migration cycle, All of these things are driven by this diurnal cycle. Now you say, no, wait a minute, migration, why would that be? Because the diurnal cycle is not steady, is it? It changes with the season. The biology of birds, they migrate based upon the season. How do they know the season? They know the season because their biology is keyed into this cycle, and this length of days and nights change. That tells them what the season is, and their biology responds and they behave accordingly. And this goes into moths and birds and turtles and every animal's biological cycle is in one way or another linked to this. This has become a big problem with the insect world. Germany is the first country to establish lighting regulations on outdoor lighting concerned principally with the decrease in biomass in the country that has been going on for many years. And it's become apparent that this is artificial light, turning light into night into day, is impacting the breeding and survival of insects, which of course are very important to the whole biological structure that we depend on. We've all seen moths drawn to light, right? This process by which it impacts the insect world is multifold. It goes in at many levels, but one of the simplest is just drawing the insects to the artificial light where they're captured in a process called phototaxis, and therefore they don't breed and they don't live, they don't feed, and they die from it. I was surprised to see that this extends all the way up to birds. This, if I can make this run, sometimes I can. This is the World Trade Center where they have the memorial process after 9/11, memorializing 9/11, and they put these spotlights up where the towers used to be. And this happens during the migratory period of birds, and the birds get captured by this light in a phototaxis process, just like the moths, and they can't get out of it, and they'll fly themselves to death. So what they've done is they get volunteers to go up there, and they literally count the birds, and when it gets up to a certain concentration, they turn the lights out so the birds can escape. But this is not limited to the World Trade Center. This is the Audubon Society and my parent organization, the International Dark Sky Association, are partnering to try to address the ever-increasing problem of bird death during migration caused by light pollution. Millions of birds die each year due to light pollution in their failed efforts at migration. And so these are people that go out in the morning mostly around the large buildings, and gather up the birds that have died during the previous night. So where does this come from, and what can we do about it? Well, the irresponsible lighting sources are basically, this is a simple process. And this, there's sounds like a very grim and depressing story I'm telling, but at the heart of it, there's a room for optimism, because it turns out addressing light pollution is not a complicated problem. It's a very simple problem, in fact, and there's no downside to it. It's all pluses. And perhaps, by analogy, there are solutions to these other problems, climate change and artificial intelligence and our diet and our artificial social world that are causing the consequences I talked about earlier. Maybe by analogy we can find similar solutions, but by digging down and seeing where the problem is and how to address it. So the problem here is improperly shielded and aimed fixtures. All that light going up in the air is because the fixtures are not properly aimed and shielded. Overlighting, which using more light than you actually need. Unmonitored dusk to dawn lighting. we've got it all over the place. It rarely has a function. It's just an impulse to leave a light on somewhere outside. And there's no actual scientific basis that there's a benefit from that in most cases. Failure to use timers and sensors. Vanity look-at-me lighting. Marketing look-at-me lighting. On over-illumination, people think brighter light is safer. The Illumination Engineering Society tells us that is not so. In fact, overlighting reduces visibility and therefore, and often generates glare, and therefore can be less safe. This just illustrates the problem with unshielded and lighting and glare. Here's a raw bulb. The camera adapts to that, and therefore everything around it is darker than it would be if you shielded that light. And this just simply illustrates what happens. It's a camera here, but it's the same thing with the eye, and how overlighting and improperly shielded lighting is not productive and contributes to light pollution and wasted energy. This is an instance which actually resulted in litigation where Entergy, which is a huge villain in this whole area, they just want to sell light at night because there's no throttle on a coal-fired power plant. So what are they going to do with that energy? They want to move it. So they sell this whole idea of putting a light in your yard and leaving it on all night. They came in and put 1,000 watt fixtures in this apartment complex and aimed them at a horizontal level. And you can see the consequences of that in terms of the fact that you can, while the foreground is well lit, you can't see past the next pine tree because you've made it so bright in the foreground and it's so unevenly illuminated that you've created a complete darkness beyond. And by the way, the parking lot behind the camera is equally dark. Commercial overlighting. This is just an example of how effective lighting can be done and compared to glare producing look-at-me lighting. Vanity lighting I mentioned, you can at least put that on a timer, Last time I checked, they don't deliver milk in the morning anymore, and there's no paper boy, So I don't know who's going to be admiring this after about 10 o'clock at night. So, and I'm skipping through this because I took so long with my introduction and I was so late getting started. But this sort of boils down all the bad parts of all the bad aspects of poor lighting or irresponsible lighting in one spot. I took this picture and I have to say that I published it on Facebook and the light got changed. So, yeah, it got changed. So there was a small victory. But you'll see here, first of all, that light is not shielded and it's aimed horizontally, not down. You want to aim light down. So that light is running off the property to somebody else's property, right? Maybe in their bedroom where it's not wanted. And half of it's going up in the sky. You can see that half of that's going up in the sky. It's all completely wasted. It's loaded with blue light. It's too white, which is glarish. And it's way too bright. So the foreground is extremely well illuminated. But if the idea here is security, what have you done for yourself since around the back is completely dark, right? And then you see what looks like snow in there? Can you see that? That's insects. Millions and millions of insects. The ground was littered with insects. There's a lot of blue in that light, and it was pulling those in. So there's nothing good here happening. It's all bad. All right, so the solutions are only the opposite of what's wrong, right? Only put light where you need it, using efficiently, fully shielded, properly aimed fixtures. Only light when you need it, using curfews, motion sensors, timers, and switches. There's a hospital, I'm told, over in Little Rock, I haven't been there, that has parking lot lighting that's occupancy operated. So it's in sections, and if there's nobody in the parking lot, there's no light on. The U.S. military has experimented with highway lighting, street lighting on some of their campuses, where the light comes on as you drive down the street and it goes off as you're behind you. At any rate, avoid overlighting and use properly colored light. Now then, properly colored means warm colors, and this gets a little confusing. And let me not and let me not get into it too deep because I'll just confuse you, but you want warm color means a colder temperature, or a lower temperature, not a colder temperature, a lower temperature. 3,000 degrees Kelvin or less in temperature. That's usually going to give you a mellow light, a yellowish light is what you want. You don't want the blue, stark, cold white light, which is higher temperature. See, I went ahead and did it anyway, didn't I? So 3,000 degrees or less is what you need to know. And by the way, when you go to the store, this is a concern inside your home too. You want to use dimmers, you want to use warm colored light for your own health. You've got on your cell phone, your iPad, your laptop, a feature in there where you can take the blue light out at night. Now why is that there? Because Apple and HP and all of them know about this problem. And so they have provided you with the opportunity to protect yourself and defend themselves in the case of any litigation. So turn that on, get warm lights, use dimmers in your home. So this just shows proper shielding. Now, I mean, progress is being made where people know and understand, where professionals are involved, it's being addressed. This right here, if you'll note, new highway lighting looks like this, not like that. All the light goes down. The bottom is flat. There's no bulb hanging down to throw the light out. This just illustrates proper shielding. This just illustrates the process. And the good thing about LED lighting is you can actually target it. And one more thing I want to make sure I say besides the color for your own practical everyday use is if you go with LED bulbs, and they're wonderful because they're efficient, you want to cut the lumens at least in half. So if you know what you're replacing an old heirloom fixture or a bulb, and you know what the lumens are of that bulb, when you go to the store to replace that bulb with an LED, you want to get it half as much. And that's because the color content of that LED light is more efficient with the human eye, and you don't need as many lumens. And that is often overlooked. And if you go around, you'll see places that are grossly over-illuminated simply because somebody wanted to upgrade to LED and they got the same lumens. So, but the virtue, I was going to say, one of the virtues of LED is you can target it. It comes in patterns, and you can set it down where you actually put that light exactly, particularly if you shield it. Now, this light up here in the left-hand corner is what we see all over our city streets. That's sometimes called a barnyard light, and only about 30%, 35% of the light that comes out of that fixture actually goes to the ground in a way that's useful. The rest of it goes out and up. It's completely wasted. Awful. If you wanted to invent a way to waste energy, that would be it. But energy provides them to the city, and the city allows them to be used. This just illustrates that that lumen thing. The right picture is heirloom fixtures, high pressure sodium, 19,000 lumens. The left side is LED at less than half the lumens, and yet you can see that the actual visual effect is superior lighting. I don't want to hit this very hard, but there's this, the utilities sell this idea of dastardly Dan and how that light outside is going to protect you from it. And as I say, that's not true. And the National Justice Institute has told Congress that it's not true, that there's no evidence. And in fact, what often happens, the Illumination Engineering Society tells us the most effective way to use light as a security device is with motion sensors. And when you think about it, that makes all the sense in the world. Otherwise, what you're doing is because criminals are not cockroaches, and they need light like anybody else to do their business. So when you provide unmonitored lighting, then you facilitate the casing and the work they have to do. Whereas with a motion sensor light, you do not light for them. He doesn't need his flashlight if you light for him, and yet you can give him the sense of discovery with the motion sensor. So now, it would be wonderful if we could get everybody educated in these basic, simple principles of responsible lighting, but you know and I know we'll never be able to do that, so what you have to do is you have to have ordinances. And we got ordinances for dog poop, and we've got ordinances for for noise, and we've got ordinances for all kinds of things. We need, unfortunately, to have ordinances to address lighting and enforce responsible lighting. But Flagstaff, Arizona is the pioneer in this area, and they still have the most effective municipal ordinance for lighting in the country. And I just want to illustrate how effective that could be by comparing Flagstaff. This is a light pollution map of Flagstaff and Conway, Arkansas. They're cities of almost identical population. Okay? The sky over Conway is 6 times brighter than it is over Flagstaff. You can see the Milky Way from inside the city limits of Flagstaff. Think of the energy difference. And this is a city street in Flagstaff. It's not like they don't have lights. They just light rationally and responsibly. And this is a city street in Little Rock, with full of glare and shadows, clutter, distraction, aesthetically not pleasing, not safe, wasteful. So what are we asking? There's a science here. There's a whole engineering profession built around lighting and what lighting is beneficial to humans and where it's useful. And they have countless publications, and they'll tell you how much light to put in any place you can think of. And we just need to do that. So what can you do at home? You can ask yourself about whether you're lighting. In fact, you can go on the International Dark Sky Association website or Arkansas Natural Sky, my organization's website for that matter, and find the link to this, where you can go through a process of inventorying your home and determining whether your home is responsibly illuminated, and make such changes as you need. And then you can even download your own little certificate certifying that you've done so. So, with all that, I come back to the intangible loss, because being connected to our place in the universe is in fact important. And we know where we've come from. We have learned a great deal about how we got here. We have no idea where we're going. But I think in one way or another it's connected to the stars. So thank you.
Take some questions?
Sure.
Anybody have questions?
I did that good a job?
Well, you know, you mentioned 3,000 degrees.
Yeah.
You can hear me, I got a big mouth.
Yeah.
3,000 degrees, I didn't understand what that was. 3,000 degrees, that's a lot, that melt titanium.
Yeah. Well, okay, and I'm not a physicist, but when we talk about light and the color of light, we talk about it in degrees. If you take a so-called black body, which, let's say a big old piece of iron disc, and you start heating it, at some point it makes light. It glows, you can see it, right? And when you're relatively low, it's red. And as it gets hotter, it shifts to orange, yellow, white, blue. Blue hot is the hottest. Okay, so at what temperature do those colors occur at? So daylight's about 5,000 degrees. This basic white light is about 5,000 degrees. If you heated the black body to that temperature, you'd get the color of daylight. Okay, so 3,000 degrees is a little redder down the spectrum.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
You talk about Kelvin and all. I'm in video production, and I deal with 3,300 and 5,000 Kelvin all the time. You mentioned that 5,000 is worse for your interior. Is it for your health or what?
No, you want warm. You want 3,000 or less. You want to get the blue light out, and so you want a warmer color. Actually, warmer colors at night, particularly outdoors, are actually more appealing to us. I mean, we've had a long evolution dealing with artificial light through a fire, right? And what color is a fire? A fire is yellow and orange and red. That's the color of a fire. And that's what we've evolved with for hundreds of thousands of years. And it's pleasant. I mean, I know it's not environmentally sound, but I love a wooden fire on a cold night, and I fail myself every once in a while. And I think that's deep rooted in the human psychology. Yes, sir.
Well, is 5,000 less healthy for you than 3,000?
Yes. Yeah, because it's got more blue light in it. Now, if you're drilling teeth, doing brain surgery, you want 5,000. You want 5,000 because it actually gives you finer, more detailed vision. If you want to tie a fly, you know, you'd want a blue light, but it's not healthy for you at night.
So how is this, we've got these, like my house. Now I have fluorescent lights, I've got 100-watt bulbs only burning 13 watts. Now,
Yeah.
whereas used to burn, 100-watt bulb burned 100 watts. 100 watts, yeah, very close.
Fluorescent is, and you're stepping out of my real expertise here, or my limited area of expertise. I'm more clued in on the environmental element aspects of all this than I am the details of the lighting itself. But fluorescent is made up of a number of fairly narrow bands of light. It's not, and it's a little bit complicated.
It's
as to
about
how.
4,100 degrees. The scale, the Kelvin scale, you're familiar with Fahrenheit and Celsius. And Celsius goes from 0 to 100. Well, Kelvin goes from absolute 0 on up. So you have to add like 270 degrees to your Celsius to get what your color of light is. And outside daylight is, a lot of times if it's really bright day out, it's like 6,500 up to 10,000 Kelvin. So it's pretty bright. But it's just a temperature scale, but rather than based on the freezing point of water, it's based on absolute 0. And that's how they calculate.
What I don't know is how much blue light there is in the fluorescent bulb.
About 40, I think it's about 4,100
Yeah.
degrees for.
Yeah.
And it's a
You know,
greenish-
see, it gets complicated because you can get 4,100 Kelvin. I don't know if we should go here, but you can get 4,100 degree light with different mixes, depending on how much red you got and how much blue you got. So 4,100 does not, it gives you the apparent color, but it doesn't tell you how that color was created. And the color is actually a mixture of all the spectrums involved. And so with fluorescent, you've got a few narrow bands that make that 4,100 up. In an incandescent bulb, you've got a more even distribution. You've got reds and oranges and yellows and whites and maybe some blues in there that give you a particular temperature. It gets complicated.
But these bulbs we're using today are don't draw much power. I mean, 13% of the power we're using in the houses, so that should make a significant reduction in how much unnecessary light we're.
Well, it certainly makes a reduction in how much energy you're using.
Okay.
But it actually is increasing the amount of light we're putting out in the environment because it's so cheap to light outdoors that people, and as I say, they don't cut the lumens when they go. And so we're putting more and more actual human identifiable light in the environment all the time. In part because of the LED efficiency and the cheapness of it. Just makes it. Yes, sir.
Commenting on that, the reason that fluorescence and LEDs are more efficient is that they do generate relatively small bands, whereas incandescent, your 5,000 or 3,000 degree, what you're talking about is the temperature of that filament, and it's actually generating everything from infrared to ultraviolet, and we're only looking at a small part of it, and so the increased efficiency is basically cutting down the
Touch one.
the part of the,
Touch an incandescent bulb, and that's where a lot of the energy is. You don't see it, you can feel it, all right? An LED is a lot cooler, because all that energy is going into the visual spectrum. This is what he's saying. It's going into the visual, and it's light. But light, all light is energy we can see. That's what light is. It's all, what do they call it? I'm drawing a blank.
Spectrum.
Electromagnetic energy. It's all electromagnetic energy, but we only see a narrow band of it, and we call that light. So an incandescent bulb has got all this energy coming out of it that you can't see.
anyway, what I really want to ask a question of is one of your examples there had LED on the LED basically on the good side and sodium vapor on the other side. And of course, sodium is actually quite yellow.
Yeah.
Which is you have to know what the
About 1800.
about 1800.
Yeah.
Okay, so
High pressure sodium. These pink lights, I call them pink lights, that we have a lot of. They're nice because they don't have blue in them. But from that standpoint, they're nice. But yeah, they're about 1800 degrees. And you can't see any color with them. It's because
very narrow.
it's so narrow and it's so low that you can't, everything looks gray and so one nice thing about LED is you've got a white light, even though it's a warm white light, hopefully, you've got a white light, you can see color with it. That's another.
That, by the way, is what they do with LEDs is your LED actually has several different LED lights in that bulb to give you, because they are so narrow band. An LED by itself is a very, very narrow band. You got to throw several of them together, otherwise you get the same problem you get with sodium. Is that it all looks gray because it's all the same color.
Right. Yes, sir.
So we used to see a lot of dead insects on our window shields, our car shields, when we drove at night. We just don't see that anymore. Is the light pollution one of the major causes of
It's
that?
probably a factor. Undoubtedly insecticide, agricultural pesticides undoubtedly have a role to play there. When I was a kid, you maybe almost old enough to know, but when I was a kid, my maternal grandparents were from Mississippi. We would drive over there, from time to time, Christmas and Thanksgiving or something, from time to time, make that trip across the Arkansas Delta region and into Mississippi. And you couldn't get very far. Your windshield would be covered with bugs, right? And all the filling stations were full service filling stations, and they all had the water dispensers and the scrubbers, and you'd pull in there and they'd clean your windshield down and scrape it off and so forth. I drive to Memphis now, and I don't need my windshield cleaned. The big trucks would put screens on there. Well, the cars would have bras on the front of them to protect the paint from all the insects that you fly into. That's the reason, as I say, Germany is concerned about that problem. Of course, they've got more light pollution than we do.
Well, I live out in the country south of Little Rock, and I'm the second youngest person in the room, and even in my lifetime, the biodiversity is shockingly lower than when I was a kid. In the 80s, during the summer, there was no shortage every day of bees all over the place, and butterflies all over the place, and fireflies just full of course every single night. And now it's like 3 or 4 times a summer, my woods will light up with fireflies. I'm like, oh my God, there's fireflies! Wow! And last summer was the first summer, or maybe it was the one before. I only saw 2 butterflies that were dead on the side of the road. And I've usually, again, monarchs are just everywhere all throughout the day. You didn't even pay attention to it. You took it for granted.
And the fireflies illustrate this process real well, because that flashing light thing is a breeding process. And you create artificial day, and you obviously, it's hard to meet up at the bar. You're a firefly,
But we've had 2 100-year floods and 1 500-year flood just in the last 10 years, and that has brought a predator's ball to Arkansas, all these birds are feasting, got black vultures, eagle, I mean, the river's just filled with bird life. And they're eating a lot of these bugs. There's a lot more insects. I mean, I've never seen so many birds in some areas. They're here now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I call it predator's ball. There's plenty of food. Yeah.
Rice farming has a little bit to do with that, I bet.
What does it?
I said rice farming has a little bit to do with that also. Bruce,
Yeah.
are there any lawsuits you'd like to talk about that were in regard to lighting and such that you could bring up here?
You say lawsuits?
Lawsuits.
Lawsuits?
Yes, sir, lawsuits.
I've done a little bit of that on a pro bono basis, and then I've helped a few people bring their own cases, and you know, that the one I showed you, the apartment complex, I did that one, and we took the deposition of Entergy employees, and that one in another case, and they, you know, they admit they don't know. They run ads saying that they're providing professional lighting that will secure your property, protect your property. That's what they say in their advertising. And then I take their depositions, and they say we don't know anything about security. We don't know anything about lighting. We just make these lights available. The customer picked this light out. We don't have anything to do with it, which is bullshit. So we've been able to improve the situation in each of the cases I brought. I never, for various reasons, we never got to see it through to the point I would have liked, but we were always able to improve the circumstances, and Entergy paid our costs, a couple of $1,000 in the one where we had incurred significant costs. And then I helped a lady down in south of Hot Springs, and she brought suit, bless her heart, fought it out for several years, and they finally, we got that fixed. And she didn't want to drop the suit. She went on and gave within a couple of days of trial. They paid her several $1,000s in damages that she was able to get on her own. So we've had some success with it. I've got a little postcard that I've created that I make available to people who have a light trespass problem. And a few of them have been used and they've worked. They take it to their neighbor and they talk about it, and they often get it fixed. In the few cases where it's been used, one case, the guy took it to his neighbor, and his neighbor said, "Okay, now I'll fix mine, but let's go to all the other neighbors." And they went around and worked the whole street. So, you know, it's a process of education, but it's huge.
On the insect question, 25% of the world uses insects for their major part of their protein diet.
For their what?
Protein diet. 25% of the world
Right.
eats insects.
Well, of course, it's the base of the food chain.
Yeah.
Everything, really. I mean, well,
Oh,
plants,
yeah,
the base
yeah,
of the food chain.
yeah, so.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions, we'll go ahead and let Bruce off the hook.
I'm sorry, I was so late and got in here flustered. I was down at the old church. I didn't realize that the church had moved. I was down there and I kept saying, "Where is everybody?"
Oh, you went to Unity.
We haven't moved.
What?
You went to Unity. You went to Unity.
You were there.
Unity,
No,
okay.
that's a different church.
It's a different church.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's where I was until about 6 minutes to, and I said, "This is not right."
No.
Obviously.
Oh, wow.
Same thing happened to me 20 years ago. I was sitting there going, this is not the place I.
Yeah.
I thought it was a fantastic presentation, so it was worth you being late.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
thank you.
great
Appreciate
job.
that.
Thank you.
We go back to boys camp.
Oh, wow.
All right. So ASF is a little bit more than just a something put on that you can attend, something to meet up with friends. It's also a way for you to get involved. If you'd like to, host an event such as a potluck, a book club, a families meetup, exercise, whatever, just let us know and we'll get it on the schedule. It's really that easy to become an organizer. And if you'd like to be considered as a speaker in one of our future meetings, just let us know. Or if you know somebody that would be great for this role, just like Roger connected us with Bruce, who did a great job. It's that easy, and that helps keep things moving. And we of course also have a need for people who could help us with their skills and graphic design, website development, law, accounting, any number of fields. And if you have skills to contribute, please let us know. And we'll have a couple of other meetings this week. Pint Night is tomorrow at the Flying Saucer, meeting up at about 7 p.m. And we have ASF board meeting on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. And I'm reading all these off of the meetup.com app, by the way. Highly encourage you to jump onto meetup.com and you can follow the Arkansas Society of Freethinkers there. If you don't want another app on your phone, the second easiest way to do it is to just bookmark the arfreethinkers.org website, because we got it set up in our technical fanciness skills to where our website has a calendar that reflects the calendar that's on Meetup, and you can click through that and learn about events, where they are, what time they are, and that sort of thing. And I believe that you could even, click the little icon and get a map there so that you don't end up at the wrong church. There's also a secular substance abuse recovery going on Thursday night at 7 p.m. If you know somebody, or if you are somebody who could benefit from that, definitely jump into that. It's a rare resource here in Arkansas to have a group like that. And then the big thing on Saturday is Pride. Pride is going to be in the Argenta area, North Little Rock, and ASF will have a table there with volunteers. We need more volunteers. We need more folks who want to show up, whatever period of time you'd like to. Just jump on there. You can hit, you can RSVP on the Meetup app. That's the preferred way to let us know, or just drop in. You'll find us in the vendor area, and grab a seat and chit-chat, and kind of help spread the word that Freethinkers are organizing in Central Arkansas. And then on the following Monday, not this Monday, but the following one, we have a little Zoom night call if you'd like to stay home and still communicate with your fellow Freethinkers. So, appreciate you coming, and we'll see you here next month. If anyone would like to stick around and help clean up chairs and whatnot, more than welcome. And we really appreciate you, and see you later.
If you'd like to know more about the Arkansas Society of Freethinkers, check us out online at arfreethinkers.org. You can also find us on Meetup, Facebook, and on YouTube. At Arkansas Society of Freethinkers, people are accepted as human beings and are never threatened with eternal damnation. In a nutshell, a freethinker believes there are no imaginary gods whose dogma is sent to control the human race. Rather, we are all human beings responsible for our own actions and our own future. Check us out at any of the following online locations. Send us an email and let's talk. Or go to Meetup and join us at any of our regularly scheduled events. Let's get together and hope to see you soon.